Again, I'm Tiffany Stingline. Prior to coming to work for Girl Scouts Lakes and Pines, I had spent probably about 10 years working with volunteers, recruitment, retention. So I have some experience even before Girl Scouts with this, and so I'm really happy to bring that here. One of the points of feedback that we have gotten from asking troop leaders how things are going, particularly our first year leaders, is that they need help. They don't know how to get parents more involved, that sort of thing. So that's why I'm doing this and why you're all here. So I am going to share some PowerPoint slides. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint slide? Okay, good. So welcome to Help! Recruiting and Retaining Volunteers. This is the agenda for this little mini session. We did our quick welcome already. We're going to go over why we want volunteers, because believe it or not, some people struggle with that. Why people volunteer, finding volunteers, and onboarding volunteers, keeping volunteers. And then I'll be sure to keep some time for questions at the end, but if you have something urgent, feel free to get my attention. So why do we want volunteers? Sharing the workload, because frankly, you know, running a Girl Scout troop, it does involve some work, and we want to make sure that you as leaders don't burn out. We also want the girls to see you asking for help and getting help, right? We want them to see that cooperation so that they can internalize that and have that model for the future. Another reason is to bring in different skills. So one of my favorite stories about this, Martin Luther King Jr. was a great speaker, great civil rights leader. He had a friend who worked with him, Bayard Rustin, and he did all of the organizing. And in fact, he was once quoted as saying that Martin Luther King Jr. couldn't organize a group of vampires to go to a bloodbath. So we want to make sure that, I mean, not everybody is good at everything. We want to play to our strengths and make sure that we're sharing our strengths and that other people are sharing theirs as well. And then also, because I said so. We need to have people meeting the safety ratios and our safety activity checkpoints lists. So that's the because I said so reason, right? So why people become volunteers? This is based on the work of behavioral psychologist David McClelland, and it reflects the acquired needs theory. So different motivations that people have. One is for affiliation, and that is the need to be around other people. So people who are seeking affiliation, they tend to be good listeners, they're perceived as caring and warm. No task is too menial if it's with other people. These could be troop meeting volunteers, cookie booth folks, chaperones. These are people who want to be around other people and part of a group. Achievement. So these tend to be the worker bees. They prefer to work alone or on special projects. They tend to be very organized. Does this sound like a troop treasurer? A cookie manager, a fall product manager. They are motivated by seeing something through and achieving something, accomplishing something. Then there's power, although I think that's a not perfect word for it. I prefer influence because it's the need really to influence people and the organization. So there are two types of people who are seeking to fulfill this need for power. There's social power and then there's personal power. And we all know some people who are seeking personal power. That's not terribly healthy for a group. Social power is trying to bring the group moving it forward. So they tend to be articulate and passionate spokespeople for a group or an organization. They're good at building a consensus and balancing competing priorities and viewpoints. They do require clear communication and to be in a partnership really with you if you're trying to lead a group. They often serve as board members. Our service unit volunteers can sometimes be these kinds of folks. So that's that theory of motivation. So I want to know, why do you volunteer? Does any of this ring a bell for you? Now, most people have more than one, but they are maybe lean one way or another. So for me, I am motivated by achievement. I like to see things move from one place to another. I am marked from one column to the next. And I am going to unmute everyone so we can talk a little bit. Except Sarah. Sorry, Sarah. There we go.
I would put my picture on here now again if I knew how to do it. Do I go up to the top and click on something, or?
Are you on a computer?
I'm on a computer. I was putting it before in a funny
Okay.
way.
So if you wiggle your mouse or your cursor, in
Uh-huh.
the lower left-hand corner, there will be something that kind of looks like a video camera, like a movie camera, that's red, and you can tap on that.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Any discussion?
I fall in the same category as you. And when you said treasurer, that's what I am.
Oh.
I'm a co-leader and the treasurer. So I have I created spreadsheets for my daughter's cookie sales this year because we had 5 sheets out at different places between grandma and grandpa's and works and things like that. So I put everything in a spreadsheet and sent it off to the troop leader who was in charge of it, because then she saw what kind of each one for each column, everything was added up, and then when the dollars came in, I could check them off on there. And so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm probably the affiliation. I do kind of like to be around other people, and then I don't really think it's the power thing, but it's more the keeping things going. Like, I became a troop leader because the old one quit, and my kid would have lost her troop entirely. Like, there was nobody else that was going to do it. So that's how most of my leadership things have evolved since I've been a parent. And but I'm not afraid to be the one in charge and to be making decisions. So it's okay with me, but it really is kind of the affiliation and the, I don't know, achievement to not make it fall through, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure where I fall. I'm kind of an odd duck. So I was doing the Cub Scouts, and I was having girls come to the Cub Scout meetings. And at that time, I would let them do everything, but they couldn't be recognized for anything.
Oh, Jenny, I think you froze.
Friends was also a Girl Scout. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, so I contacted the council and asked if we could have a Girl Scout troop, and they said, as long as you pass a background check, sure.
Yeah, of course you can.
So now I have Girl Scouts too, and my boys are in Boy Scouts. So I have a lot of Scout duties. But the girls, we have some amazing girls, and it's so fun to see them grow and learn, and thrive. So it's very rewarding that way. So I don't know what category that is.
Probably in between achievement and affiliation if I had to put you somewhere.
All right.
And you know, you can be more than one. Most
I
people
want
are
12.
at least all of them, you know, a little bit. It's just kind of where the mixture is. Sandra, any insights into your own volunteering?
Just that I probably fit more of the affiliation. I was a Girl Scout myself. My mom was the Girl Scout leader, and when I was working, I always designated all my United Way money to go to Girl Scouts. And then when I retired, I have all boys. I have 3 boys. And so I never got to be a Girl Scout leader for my own kids. So then when I retired, I started volunteering with Girl Scouts in Action. And from that, kind of challenged myself to start a troop for girls who were underserved in scouting. So that's primarily what my troop is about.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, well, and it's been, you know, extremely challenging, but also extremely rewarding. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I am going to mute everyone again as we move along. Okay. Steph, could you wave for me? Okay. Thank you. The number one way to get anyone to do anything is to ask them. So number one is to look them in the eye face to face and ask them. That's not really an option right now, but this is pretty close. Second best would be, you know, on the phone. If you can talk to them and have, you know, your voice communication, that's pretty good too. Less effective would be email or a Facebook post or something where they aren't responding to you in real time. So there are 2 ways to go about volunteer recruitment: focused recruitment versus general recruitment. So focused recruitment is, I need a cookie manager. Who can I find to be the cookie manager? General recruitment is asking for volunteers, seeing what their skills are, and then recruiting them in and finding them a space. So we have a form, and it's called the Families Make It Happen form. We give it out to the new leaders, but we don't always share things with current leaders. So I'm going to bring that up. And it just, it asks for information that you probably don't need if you're not a new leader, about the parent's name and phone number and that sort of thing. But it also asks for an inventory of skills. So you might not know that one of your girl's parents is, for example, in the National Guard. And so you wouldn't know that without asking them. I know that Jennifer Itkinen, who's a member support specialist out of Duluth, when she was a leader, found out that one of her girls' parents was in the National Guard, and he volunteered to do flag etiquette with them, and she built an entire badge around that. So you don't know what kind of workplaces you could do a tour of until you ask, right? Okay. Be specific if you're doing a focused recruitment. So if you need a troop treasurer, ask for that, right? The other thing is that I have found over the last few years, back in the day, we used to recruit volunteers and we'd give them fancy titles. We'd make them the chair of the committee to do some amazing thing, or we'd make them the director of some other great thing. I have found in more recent years that that is not as effective. People seem to be scared of titles and sort of an open commitment that might imply. So instead of asking for a troop treasurer, like I just said, maybe you want to say, I need somebody to handle the accounts and ask about tasks that people can do, even though it's the same thing, right? But if you ask about tasks, people seem to be less intimidated. So that's just a hint. Potential volunteers, parents are the obvious one. Older Girl Scouts. So if you have a Daisy troop and you need some help with administering a program, older Girl Scouts are always looking for volunteer opportunities within Girl Scouts. You can look into your network. Do you have friends who are not necessarily involved in the troop but have that skill set? Ask the parents if they have friends, if they know people. Again, if you're casting a wide net, you can go to service organizations, Lions Club, Elks. Schools and colleges can be a good place to find folks to volunteer, and houses of worship is another one. They tend to have people in both of those places who are looking to get involved in the community and seeking affiliation. Okay, onboarding volunteers. So volunteers need to be members of Girl Scouts and complete a background check if they will handle funds, inventory, or if they are going to have direct contact with girls. Membership, congratulations, you should all have figured out how to do that, but I just want to reiterate, scholarships are available. It's a checkbox. And then the background check comes after that. There are some exceptions. There are volunteers who don't need a background check if they aren't handling funds, inventory, or interacting with girls. As the Girl Scout that always had all of my badges in a little drawer, the volunteer who sews them on has a special place in my heart. So if you are collecting the vests and badges and there's just a parent who's willing to sit down and sew them on, they aren't interacting with girls, they aren't handling inventory or money. They don't actually need a background check. Oh, and then I clicked on the thing. Good. Keeping volunteers. So number one has got to be communication. You want to keep in communication with them, especially for those volunteers who are driven by affiliation or influence, right? They're going to want to have more community. Achievement folks can be a little bit more focused. Okay, recognition. So we have GSUSA and Girl Scouts Minnesota, Wisconsin Lakes and Pines programs. And I'm going to include, when I send out some handouts, I'm going to include our forms for that. We have a bunch of different recognitions for volunteers, and then the Beacon Award, which is for community members that are supportive. I encourage folks to be creative too. A card from the girls, handwritten thank you notes, anything that can make, you know, especially for somebody who's driven by affiliation, that connection tighter or stronger is an excellent tool. And then you always want to empower them, asking for input, and don't forget to ask again. All right, so that's the end of the slideshow. I will unmute everyone because we're coming up on half an hour. Any questions, ideas?
You just said something about like empowering them or whatever, the volunteers. Could you repeat that really quick? What did you say?
Well, sure. So you want to make sure that they have ownership in what they're doing. So for example, Sarah was probably not told you need to set up a spreadsheet and have things color coded, and it was, we need to keep track of this, please help. And so that ownership and that connection is important, and empowering them to say, you know, what can we do better next time? And then they come up with an idea that will hopefully make things better, and they then have ownership of that piece and are more likely to come back because it's their idea. Okay, any other thoughts, ideas? Was this worth a half an hour of your evening?
Well, I'm going to, the one reason I had the question about the empowerment is I'm taking little bitty notes, and I'm a really big fanatic on communication, like probably because I'm just I need that myself. Like I want everybody to know what's happening. And so we have our service unit page, and you know, all these people are very busy, volunteers are very busy. And so I'm the only one. Obviously there's only 4 of us that did it tonight anyway, but anyway, my God, my point is I'm going to write little bitty notes on what we learned tonight, so that just to communicate with these volunteers, and I guess to make them know that at least somebody in the service unit is looking out for them, or, you know, trying to get information to them, and to just kind of also say like, hey, thanks, you know, Tiffany reminded us to thank you guys too, and just something. So anyway, I'm a big believer in communicating with volunteers, and that keeps them involved and makes them feel like they're not just out there lost and wondering what to do, I guess. So maybe I communicate too much with my people. I don't know.
And I will send out a link to the video once we get it up, which sometimes takes a day or two, the slide deck, and forms for volunteer recognitions, and the Families Make It Happen form as well.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah.
Can I ask, since I missed the intro, where are you other 3 ladies from? What area? I mean, of the state or whatever.
Sabika.
I'm in ESCO.
Okay.
I'm in Duluth.
Okay. And I don't know if you know, but I'm in Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay.
So do you guys all, do you 3 have a hard time finding volunteers and keeping volunteers?
I have had like a revolving door basically of volunteers that I've recruited from friends, and now my 2 primary volunteers are a person that was recruited when she was a student at St. Scholastica, and then a